today we are going to discuss a very important problem. Let me introduce myself. My name is Varvara Mironova. I work at Biogeography department, and my field of expertise is medical geography and all issues connected with the Окей. Слышно что-нибудь было? Скажите, пожалуйста.
We can hear you. Мы можем вас слышать, однако презентация ваша исчезла.
Varvara, please upload the presentation in our time.
Вообще. Okay. So today we will discuss the problem about relationship of environmental factors and human health, and I'll tell you about some maybe approaches and assessment of this problem, but these two topics. So the problem is to get it into such a small presentation. So the only thing I can do today is to give us just a short narrative of this problem. And let me start from the problem. Let me start from the issue of global threats. So in public perception, which is translated through media, there are a lot of global threats in our world today, but the first of all, it's global warming, environmental pollution, and energy resources shortage, loss of biodiversity, and so on and so forth. So this just a short list you can see on this slide. But the people who is responsible for our global health, I mean World Health Organization, who is supposed to be a leading organization in public health activities. So they issued their own list of global threats connected with our health. Ironically, this list was issued just before the start of the current pandemic of COVID-19. So it shows how this problem looked in the end of 2019. And they are speaking about, of course, they spoke about the problem of air pollution and climate change, and they put it on the first place among the most serious problems connected with human health. Then they discussed non-communicable diseases and some other issues connected with social life, and some diseases originated from the lifestyle or from some inner peculiarities of humans. But you can see that the most points in this list are related to infectious diseases. So, and if you look at the number 6 in this list. They were speaking about some high threat pathogens that may arise. At the end of 2019, the most serious threat was Ebola fever, which seems to be one really it's a very important issue, and maybe you remember that we had very serious epidemic in Western Africa in several years ago, in 2013 to 15. And one of the problems they predicted it, this problem of vaccine hesitancy, and now we can see that this problem is real. But again, I'll repeat that to WHO opinion, the most serious problems lie in the field of infectious diseases, but not only them. Of course, air pollution is one of the serious hazards of modern world, and there are some correlation about between air pollution, the number of fine particle mass, and some groups of diseases, for example, oncologic diseases or cardiovascular diseases that are attributed now to air pollution. Environment pollution but of course this problem is of a very great concern, but we should remember that there are different kinds of environment pollution. Air pollution is just one example of it, and at first glance, it seems very common to think that economic growth is bound to be accompanied by environment pollution. So some people believe that, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry.
It is okay, we can hear you.
Is it okay? No? At first glance, it seems very common. So many people believe that the world is less beautiful today than it was decades ago, and that more and more environmental pollution awaits us in the future. And maybe they are right if we will consider some poor countries and countries with developing countries, but in fact, these popular beliefs may be refuted by some facts related to developed countries, because economic growth should result in increased availability of benefits such as fresh air, clean water, healthier surroundings in general, so just as food, energy, and others. So our national environment will increasingly meet the requirements of healthy life, and in this sense, there can be no limits to progress. There are different types of pollution. Over time, many of them were almost completely eliminated in developed world. For example, we in Europe, we hardly it's unlikely to see some huge amounts of household waste on the city, and also infectious diseases burden is also not so heavy in developing countries. So again, we're speaking about progress, and here we can see the ways how to reach it. Of course, there are a lot of other problems that emerged relatively recently and have become a serious problem. Gasoline exhaust from cars, for example, urban and industrial noise, and urbanization as it. Nuclear waste, and also some other problems. So this is of course this is the problems that we should decide, but in fact there are not so much information yet about the connection between environment pollution and health. These links are not so we think they are evident, but in fact in every case we should find some proofs for it. And if we will speaking about if we try to arrange these problems, of course we can see that there are some difference between really serious environmental pollutants and those exaggerated or minor. In the past, for example, the worst contaminants were bacterial and viral infections, which were spread through unclear water, air, insects, and so on. Now, in developed countries, no one even means infectious diseases when talking about pollution. Please note it. But 150 years ago, the situation was different, because perhaps you know about the study of John Snow, the study of cholera in London, which was one of the biggest cities in Europe at the time, in the middle of 19th century. And he proved that cholera cases were connected with the particular water pump contaminated with cholera vibrio. Nowadays, they hardly happen in developed world, but instead of this, now it is substantiated by other infectious agents such as viruses that can be transmitted through air and other things. So the situation changes, of course. Before I start to discuss some environmental factors affecting our health, I would like to tell you about one more interesting example of a story. It's a story, and very dramatic story about one of the most one of the most serious pollutants. It was believed to be, for a long time, it was believed to be one of the worst pollutants in the world. I mean, DDT. DDT was first synthesized even in 19th century by an Austrian chemist, Ottmar Zeider, but remained unused. Nobody knew what to do with it, and only in early 30s, a Swiss chemist Paul Müller discovered his insecticidal properties, and for this he received, by the way, the Nobel Prize in 1948. DDT was when it was it was a revolution in combat with serious vector-borne diseases, first of all malaria, and so this Nobel Prize was absolutely deserved by Mueller, because DDT helped a lot of people to survive and not to contract serious vector-borne diseases. But later, DDT was attacked by environmental activists after the publication of a book of Rachel Carson. It was called Silent Spring, and then it was banned for use in the United States and other countries. But the problem was, it was not in the DDT itself, but the problem was in people attitude, because it was when it was evident that it helps to combat with insects and other vectors of diseases, people started to use it in other fields, and first of all in agriculture, and the DDT started to be sprayed over agricultural lands, and it was the beginning of the catastrophe, because it penetrated in the intertrophic chains. And then, yes, it was banned because of its alleged toxicity, and because of its damage to, first of all, to some animals, first of all, birds. But in fact, you can see that the problem was, well, I'll repeat it again, the problem was not with the DDT itself, but the problem was with how to say, unreasonable use of it. So when we speak about environment pollution, about its potential impact on our health, we should think about rational use of some means that we have to combat diseases. So yes, we understand that this issue is very important, but and it, of course, it depends on human activity, but in the 2020, we faced another problem, and this problem made us to forget about others, because we faced a new threat, a previously unknown virus that raced around the world, rapidly emerging as one of top become one of top killers here. So this problem is turned to be more serious than problems of climate change, environmental pollution, and so on and so forth, because we can see its immediate effect on our health. So that may be more serious. That, in fact, so it may be more serious problem that than all enumerated earlier. But in fact, nothing will spread without cause. So the problem of science, so the task, the aim of scientists is to try to find the ways of emerging the problems with the health, including the problem of infectious diseases. So we need to know these ways, how the environment affects our health. So this is this idea lies in the basis of the concept of disease preconditions, and in fact, of course, people knew from ancient times. People knew about the relationship of certain diseases with environmental conditions, and since ancient times, there are some notion about belief of miasms. That meant that there are some places, some locations with bad air, for example, or bad water, or something else that affected human health. Now we can speak about disease preconditions from the point of view of science, but actually, there is nothing new. Even from Hippocrates' times, it was well known that there are some waters, places, airs can be responsible for good or bad health of the population. And Hippocrates tried to describe some conditions that may be favorable for good health of people, and made some advices for people in choosing their choosing the places to build house, for example, or to live, and so on. These old ideas these very old ancient ideas is based the insight of comfort and extreme environment. And if we'll speak about it, I'm sorry. We can speak first of all of climate comfort, because this map, which was created in maybe several decades ago, this map was created for Russia. The authors tried to evaluate the conditions favorable for living, and they used some a lot of environmental indicators, most of which were related to climate. There are a lot of meteorological parameters I will not speak about too much, but actually this is the evidence that the comfort of our living is connected with environment. And what factors, what environmental factors we can discuss here? First of all, we can speak about natural, socioeconomic, and complex factors. And what about natural factors? They can be abiotic and biotic, and you can see here the list of them. Some socioeconomic factors also can make some influence on the health. And first of all, those factors are related to population, economy, environmental pollution. Again, I speak about it. Healthcare, the state of care, health care system, and so on. And we can discuss also some complex factors when we try to make an insight from positions of natural zones and some landscapes and so on and so forth. For us, medical geographers who deal with the infectious diseases, first of all, not only infectious, but different diseases, but when we discuss the special patterns of the spread of diseases, both infectious and non-communicable, of course we can we can consider some factors both in complex or alone. For example, let us start from geophysical factors. Such a factor as a height above sea level. When you live there, you in mountains, for example, somewhere in Addis Ababa, imagine. So you hardly will have some problems with health because of height above sea level, because you'll get adapted for it. But people who just come here and comes to this to such locations can feel some problems with health and got sick and have some symptoms of hypoxia, for example, headache, insomnia, and so on and so forth. Also, some geophysical factors can use some disorders connected with various meteorological parameters: heat, cold, high humidity, atmospheric pressure, and drops, and so on and so forth. And also we can suffer from such symptoms, like, and can get some skin irritation, heat stroke, and so on and so forth. So this is the influence of, so I described here the influence of geophysical factors. We can discuss also chemical factors, for example. So they can be evaluated by the content of chemical elements and their compounds in the soil and natural waters of the landscape. So the lack or excess of these elements can cause pathological deviations in the state of health of the population, can cause diseases that are called microelementosis, that arise from an imbalance of vital microelements, for example, zinc or copper or selenium or fluoride, and so on and so forth. So these are the most popular and well-known example is so-called endemic goiter, manifesting in the increase of the thyroid gland, and this disease is associated with iodine deficiency in the environment. And you can see on this map how vast is the geographical range of this disease. So these are some examples of separate influence of the influence of separate factors. In this way, we can discuss any factor. For example, I think that it will be interesting to discuss climatic factor, because climate change and climatic factor as it is a very popular topic, and I think it's the most popular topic after COVID-19 nowadays, because we all discuss our future and the possibility of climatic catastrophe and so on and so forth. And first of all, of course, we try to understand, try to predict how the changes in climatic factor will change our world. And at this we should remember that, and should note that the role of factors that affect the spread of diseases is unequal. And climatic factor is deemed one of the main determinants for the spread of diseases. First of all, naturally determined diseases. I mean diseases that are caused by living pathogens. And of course, an essential part of any study is the search for links between the spread of diseases and factors of the geographical environment. And this problem becomes very important when we face some new pathogens and some new pathogens that that arise before us, and try to understand the determinants of these emerging. And it was about maybe 20 or 25 years ago, a new concept concept emerged in epidemiology, first of all, and then it was, of course, it was adopted by medical geographers and other people who works with the problems of public health. So this is the problem of emerging and re-emerging diseases. If we try to explain what is it, so we can see that emerging infectious diseases can be defined as infections that have newly appeared in the population or have existed but are rapidly increasing in incidence or geographical range. It was one of the first explanations of this term, and of course, I'll repeat that nothing can emerge without cause, yes, without some preconditions, without some determinants, and in such emergence, in the emergence of such diseases, of course, some ecological environmental factors or perhaps demographic factors that place people in increased contact with a previously unfamiliar microbes or natural hosts. So this factor can be identified in virtually all cases. How does this emergence happen? So there are two-step process of it. First of all, it happened to be that an introduction of an agent into a new host population when the pathogen originated in the environment, possibly in another species or as a variant of existing human infection. So recently we saw this spillover from bats to human through some other animals happened in these Chinese markets, raw markets, and now we can see the most serious emerging infectious disease, which we call COVID-19. And but it's not it's necessary not only to for the agent, not necessary to be introduced in a new environment. Also, it should be established here and started to disseminate, to spread in this new environment among animals, among, for example, vectors and different animals, and including people. So we can speak about the adoption of them. Of these agents. So if we'll try to make a determination of these diseases, so we can speak about emerging diseases. This is a new disease that occurs in an area or a host population, and then spreads further. And takes roots due to lack of awareness, for example, lack of diagnostics, experience, or other factors. And we can speak about diseases that are recognized in the human host for the first time, human or animal host. Re-emerging disease means diseases that historically have infected humans, but continue to appear in new locations, or evolved some drug-resistant forms, or reappear after elimination in an old place, and so on and so forth. So there can be entirely new infections, for example, COVID-19, but earlier we had Bourbon virus, SARS, MERS, and the other infectious diseases, new diseases in specific geographical region, for example, West Nile fever in North America, which get into it in mid-90s of the last century, re-emerging in the region after a long absence, for example, dengue fever in southern United States, and later we'll try to understand how could it happen here, how can dengue re-emerge and be restored here. And also we can speak about disorders caused by antibiotic resistant bacteria. And when we try to understand the particular causes of diseases in particular place, of course, we can divide the factors into several groups. First of all, the factors related to the pathogen itself, yes, so some genetic adaptation and change and so on and so forth. So that's what we can see with all those new strains of coronavirus. The other group is the factors related to human hosts, some physiological features and susceptibility to infection, some human demographics, behavior, and so on and so forth. But you can see that in this list, you can see the longest list is, of course, is connected with environmental factors. First of all, with changing climate, changing ecosystems, some changes in animal populations, and of course some social economic factors such as, for example, lack of public health services, poverty, social inequality, and so on and so forth. But when we speak, when we speak about the environmental factors, of course, we should remember that they interact, they can play so they can play their own role, but in fact the cause of emergence of new disease, of course, this cause lies in the interrelations and in the interrelations and some interference of these factors. But of course, as the role of factors is unequal, as we spoke earlier, and some of the factors play major role, some of them play minor role, but in fact they worked together. They are working together. I can give you a lot of examples of some emergency of new diseases, new pathogens, and some examples of interrelations of different factors connected, related to human environment. And I think that this is the brilliant case, very interesting case of an introduction of invasive species. And this is the case of Aedes albopictus. Aedes albopictus is a tropical mosquito. It is called also tiger mosquito because of this strips on the legs of this animal, and it lived in Southeast Asia. You can see these blue dots. These blue dots show its initial geographical range, but then it started to spread over the world with a very interesting way. It can breed in any small portion of water, in a can, in a small ditch, for example, in any small container, and so on and so forth. And they started to breed in also, they started to breed in the water that collects in the tires. These tires are were transported for recycling to some recycling places. First of all, it was somewhere in Hawaii, for example, and then with these tires, Aedes albopictus started its march over the world, and spreading out of its initial habitat. It appeared in Europe, in Latin America, in USA, and so on and so forth. Scholars started to study these species, and it turned to be that it becomes and can be infected with quite a wide range of different arboviruses. For example, chikungunya fever, for example, dengue fever, and Zika fever, Zika virus, and perhaps West Nile virus, and so on. So this is the example of interrelation of some natural and some factors of natural environment, because of course for tropical mosquito to find new places for breeding, for living, of course it needed a little bit warmer habitats. And climatic change, I think that climatic change played some role in this process. So that's why we should be very pay very serious attention to such events. And I can say that Aedes albopictus is not the only species that introduced in new places, in new territories, in new areas. For example, we can name Aedes careicus, for example, Aedes aegypti, which is a very dangerous vector of arboviral infections, including yellow fever. So this is the case. Again, I'll repeat that this is the case of interrelation of animals, people, some features of some demographical features, by the way, because for example the habits, some people can have a habit to collect water in containers, for example, which is very good media for breeding of such mosquitoes. So I just saw this example in Sochi this year, because they had some containers with water with mosquito breeding, and I told them that some sanitary authorities in a small hotel, in a guest house, and I told them that health authorities will not be glad to know about their water containers. So I asked them to eliminate this water because of the danger of breeding of this mosquito, which was found in Krasnodarsky Krai several years ago. And of course, when we discuss this interrelationship of different factors, we can see that in our world, everything is interconnected, interdependent, and now we often cannot separate the issue of public health from the problem of the health of animals, plants, and so on and so forth. So that's why we are facing the necessity of evolving some new conceptions. So this new concept is evolving, and this new concept is called One Health. Now it is being formed right now. And this concept is based on the idea that of the close relationship between the health of people, animals, plants, and the environment as it. So when we look at this problem from this point of view, of course, again, we have to find some factors, some environmental factors that can affect this One Health. So now I'd like to discuss maybe the most interesting problem related to this, the problem of climate change, because again, we remember about an unequal role of factors, and climate change now is considered as one of the most serious and most important factors, and the most hazardous threats to our people, to the world population. So world's climate is changing, and among the most significant negative consequences is to the human health. Then we can say that climate change can no longer be classified as solely an environmental, scientific or technological issues, because we face heat waves, we face hurricanes, floods, and that constitute a very severe health hazard. Climate change is alleged to increase the incidence of infectious diseases throughout the world, and now we already have some evidences of such effect. For example, we have some evidence of spreading of some vector-borne diseases that are spread to areas previously unaffected due to also it also Вы меня слышите?
Да, слышим.
Сейчас слышно меня?
Да, слышно.
Okay, thank you. Just a minute. Diana. We should speak about people living in poverty, the aging population, and so on and so forth. So this is the problems that may be increased by the climate change. So climate change affects health both through extreme natural events, also through direct temperature increases, so-called heat waves, for example, and through the spread of infectious diseases. For example, if we remember the first, I think the first heat wave in Europe in this century, of course, we should remember the heat wave in Europe in the summer of 2003. I remember it very well. I visited Italy, and I remember the talks about these heat waves. People told us, we visited Italy in September when the heat wave was over, but they were absolutely impressed by this event, and told very how to say, serious threatening things about how they survived it. This heat wave in Europe caused more than 35,000 additional deaths. In France alone, it reached 15,000, and so on and so forth. So this was a very serious problem, very serious event. And though some people tell that it's okay, climate change, look at this graph. This is the graph shows excess mortality of old people in England during the cold period of the year. And if we have global warming, it's very good to. It will be very good for those people who will, for example, who will not die from cold. Yes, but actually, I think that, and I thought that it was a reasonable thing. Yes. But now I think that, of course, the problem with all those overheating and heat waves is more serious than the profit. The problem is more serious than the profit from it. So we have some good news here, by the way, nevertheless, because of course we are learning to adapt. Because, for example, there were an old case of heat wave in Philadelphia described in some old scientific literature, and they said that in 1960 this heat wave caused a sharp rise in mortality. But the same problem rose in 2000, resulted in almost no additional mortality. Why? Because people are learning to adapt. People try to invent some new means, improve